Marathon County Executive Committee to order, please. The first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have 5 committee members present in the boardroom, Supervisor Robinson, Supervisor Drabek, Supervisor Mask, and Vice Chair Dickinson, and myself. We have also online Supervisor Boots, Supervisor Fifrick, Supervisor Marash, and Supervisor Arstead, and Supervisor Ritter has asked to be excused. Out of observance of 9/11, if you would all join me in a brief moment of silence out of respect for those who were affected by 9/11. Thank you. And unless there's an objection, the data specialist, Michael, who has a presentation, one of the last items on the agenda, she has previous engagement, and so unless there's an objection, I would have that educational presentation first. Any objection? Seeing no objection from the committee, please. Michael, please.
Michael can come on up and get started here. I'll just tee it up a little bit. There's a request, and the agenda item talks about the progress toward our departmental dashboard. And Michael, I think, will provide some, I hope it's anticipated, but also we have a bit more anticipation to come. She'll give you a headline as to where we're going. But I just wanted to give a little bit of background. So when you talk about Michael's work as the data officer, certainly we have a data team of 1. So she also does some of the other work, like was alluded to, the data analyst piece. So where we have good, clean data, Michael's done a number of projects for various departments. The health department, she did a project to help them evaluate caseloads amongst public health nurses. A lot of work in our justice system that I'll talk about, but assisting the airport, Central Wisconsin Airport, and the Sheriff's Office on analyzing some law enforcement response data and visualizing that. And then also, as you'll see in just a bit, she has done a lot of work on our budget to enhance the data that is presented within the budget. And all those things are very foundational, I'll say, where we have good data. But ultimately, the project that I think we're going to talk a little bit about today is really built on top of that. And just again, to ground the group, the committee, on what the vision for our data program is, it's built on Montgomery County, Maryland. That at least was the vision that when I had a number of board members when I started in administration, and specifically as the county administrator, well, what does the data show? What data do we have? And those were great questions, which prompt me to do a little bit of research and try to find what are best practices. In Montgomery County, at least by my estimation, and Michael can certainly keep me honest and correct me, but when I looked at them, they really have an amazing program. That said, they've had it for approaching 2 decades. Their journey, they're much further along. We're about 3% of their annual budget. Their annual budget's what, $7.6 billion. It's outside of DC. It's a big county, but I'm a big fan of finding what someone else is doing and really trying to model that. And so up on the screen in the room, if you're remote, you can simply Google Montgomery County, Maryland stat, and it's their county stats page. And one of the areas they have is departmental performance dashboard. So up on the screen, you can see that they've put together, using a data platform, all the departments that they have, and then you can click, and I'll just click on the Department of Health and Human Services, and you can see that essentially for their programs, their key programs, they have data measures around things like how much of something did we do, how well did we do it, And then is anyone better off? And I know those questions are familiar to this group, and if you've been on the county board for a while, it's the results-based accountability framework that we use within our health department, and we've incorporated that into some of our budget work. So Michael spent a lot of time, and I know Chair Mask from Public Safety, we spent a lot of time in the justice system. That was the first place where Michael really worked to help us with the data, the departmental data. And if you want to look, the March 11th packet from Public Safety is a great place to do that, but I won't pull that up. But not all data and not all information that we have is like the health department public health nurse data or the law enforcement response data with Central Wisconsin Airport, which still needed some cleanup work and analysis from Michael, but a lot of her time in the justice system was really spent rebuilding and getting data integrity within the information that we had. I won't belabor the point, but I have seen her in her office with black screens. I'm not a computer, I'm not an IT guy, but she's coding and rewriting. She rewrote essentially our program to help us get better tools available for staff so that we didn't have 5 staff members doing it 5 different ways. We really worked. She did a great job. And now if you're a case manager in our justice system that works through our contract vendor, every Monday you get an email, an automated email that pulls up all of your open cases and has little red boxes where things are wrong or need to be completed, yellow boxes where there's a mistake. So she's really helped us in that regard. So there's been a lot of other work that, again, is foundational to this departmental dashboard that Michael's going to show you kind of what the bones of that look like. And the other piece is similar to what you see on the screen with Montgomery County. Michael has sat down with myself and other members in administration and department heads and tried to put together a list of key performance indicators for some of those core programs, starting with the programs that we highlight in the budget. But they're built around that idea of how much of something did we do, how well did we do it, and is anyone better off as a result? So that's been all that foundational piece. And then the other part that I'm showing you, the Montgomery County dashboard, she also did a fair amount of research and investigation into what would it look like for us to do that internally. And the cost for those data platforms, not inexpensive. Some of the best prospect we had from an external source was about $250,000 over 3 years. So Michael found a different way to do that. So with that, again, to put things in perspective, we have a data team of 1. I know Montgomery County is the vision, and I think we're certainly going to get there. But I don't have 40 people like Montgomery County has to assist Michael, but I wanted to tee that up and then have Michael show you where we're at with our departmental dashboard and kind of walk you through some upcoming timelines for when she's going to be able to roll out even more information.
Thank you so much. All right. Hello, good afternoon. Thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you for having me today. I'm excited to talk a little bit about data, and I always get excited when people want to know more. So to keep it, I guess, a little bit of, it's been, I want to say last fall is when I first came and introduced myself and kind of told you the plan of what I was thinking and, how we were going to shape our budget strategy. To give you a little bit of a background, the data officer position wears many hats. I'm very passionate about my job, and you'll hear me talk a lot about data responsibility, data stewardship, integrity. It's a lot more. Again, I wish on my first day I had a nice file that had all the spreadsheets from all the different departments all ready to go, but that's just unfortunately not how it is. But in the meantime, I'm really happy to be able to work with the different departments, see what they need to fix, and kind of clean as I go, and cleaning in the way that take a look at their processes or maybe a lack of a process where they could be more efficient, where we're not tracking something that's important and people are asking for it. So working in conjunction with them and having that partnership to be able to say, hey, please give me access to your systems and let's start telling people about the work that we do and figure out where we have strengths and opportunities where we might need to dig in and see if we have some extra work to do. So that being said, I like to talk about it like a building a house analogy. I'm a general contractor, and we've built the basement, and we've laid the foundation. We've got the framework up, but the data analyst side of it is kind of like the person that comes in and puts the shingles on the roof. The roof hasn't been built yet. The walls are still going up, so we're not quite ready for that. But in the meantime, I want to show you what we have done rather than what we're going to do. We've talked a lot about what we're going to do, but today I want to show you something. So things that we have done, we have identified 240 key performance indicators, and I'll show you a happy little spreadsheet here. There we go. Whoops. And this has all 240 that we have identified based on the mandated and discretionary services documentation. So we wanted to start with the budget. Now, if you look at the budget back in 2020, go ahead and get a visual of that. Whoops. Nope. Yep, there we go. So in 2020, it's 36 pages long. And while there is some great information, we don't have a lot of data visualizations. And in my experience, it's a lot easier to visualize information and make better decisions on something that's easier to understand at a glance, rather than sending somebody a spreadsheet with 240 rows. I'm the only person that likes that. So, but to kind of get an idea of this is what it used to look like. And now I think, again, the county has done a great job in elevating that. Now we have a much more robust budget, document. And in the budget narrative, now we have sections for each department, and we can go in and learn more about the department. So my first year here, I worked really closely with Sarah and the departments in order to get some more by the numbers. Let's talk data. What do you have? What kind of stories are we, looking to try to explain with some of our programs? Now, if you look at, for example, here's the Parks Department. We have some bar graphs or some line graphs, and we're looking at some of the, net timber revenue, camping revenue, and then I did some projections based on what data we had available, where that might fall for next year. So we have done some projections, and again, as we go along, it will get more accurate as we have more clean quality data. So that's what I've been working on for, a good portion of the last year, in addition to the justice system things that the administrator spoke about. But one of the great things that we have is that Montgomery County tool. They did they did the rest of the counties a solid and said, hey, we're going to publish a PDF that's basically, hey, here's how we did it. And so I even reached out to some of the folks on the county stat team. They have this roadmap of, hey, here's the challenges that we had. So we get to learn from some of their successes while saving time and money and not having to learn all those mistakes as we go along. So that's been wonderful in trying to build that roadmap and fast track it for what we're looking at, because it took them a while. The county-wide data inventory to take a look at all the data sets took them 5 years, and then another 5 years after that to have that open data portal where they're regularly publishing data sets and keeping up with it. Now, I'm not asking you to wait that long, definitely not, but that's why we're trying to piece together things that we have in our budget, and now we're going to work that into a KPI dashboard that we're looking at. And as the administrator alluded to, dashboards aren't free. Software is expensive, and we shopped around as a team for several different companies, one of them that specializes in public sector dashboards. And they're competitive pricing. It was really what we needed, but it was $263,000 for 3 years, and I didn't feel it would be in good taste to say, hi, I'm the new data officer. I'd like $263,000, please. Cool? Yeah, so we went back to the team and discussed how we could do more with less. So I asked, may I have permission to build it in-house. And the administrator said, hey, go for it. Let me know what you need. I'll get out of your way. So we started hunting for a really great option. And you might be familiar with Marathon County Pulse. And we have some great, here we go. Here's, oops, sorry, an example of that. I'll pull that up. So you might see the Marathon County Life Report, familiar with that. It's something that already exists. We have partners for Marathon County, and being able to work with our partners in the health department, they were kind enough to give me administrative access to the website, and so we're gonna build it through Pulse. And what we're going to do is take the, Montgomery County strategy and apply that to the scale that we need here in Marathon County. So the great news is it doesn't cost $263,000. And again, it does take a lot of work, but we'll get there. So, let me do some show and tell. We talked about what we've done, what we've saved, and now I want to show you the, I guess, framework of the house that we've been building. So you'll see this is a mock-up. It has not been published, but it's the Marathon County Key Performance Indicator Dashboards. Now, I finished my training for the Pulse platform in end of June 2025, just a couple of months ago. And amid kind of the budget busyness, I've put this together in the hopes that I can have something to show you today. So with the results-based accountability framework, we have how much did we do, how well did we do it, is anyone better off? That's kind of the guiding principle for how we're trying to evaluate some of these key performance indicators. So if you see here, each county department, and they're not all in here just yet, this is a work in progress, but you can see that each one has a button, and just like Montgomery County, go back here, they've broken theirs up also by department. So here's the mock-up of ours, and if you click on, for example, the ADRC, it takes a second to load, so I've already loaded this in another window here. But for example, Meals on Wheels, that's a program that people would like to know more about. It's on our key performance indicator list on that spreadsheet. And so we have a little bit of a background. Meals on Wheels is a program provided by the Aging and Disability Resource Center of Central Wisconsin that provides a nutritious meal, companionship, and a watchful eye on the health and safety of our seniors. Now, this is content that luckily comes from the ADRC, so I'm not making it up as I go. I work in conjunction with the departments in order to build that context. So there's a little bit more about the program, but if you scroll down here, we've got how much did we do. Now, the KPI that we have for this Meals on Wheels is the number of meals provided in Marathon County. And you can see here that not only do we have a line graph of the last 5 years, we also have this section right here. And this is the data set that you can see where the information's coming from. You can tell that, again, the period that we're looking at. And then you have download CSV. So you can download a spreadsheet of the data sets that we're publishing. Like, that's big. Now, right now it might look like only 4 numbers, but those 4 numbers represent a process that we haven't had before. And that's really exciting. So scrolling down here, the how well did we do it? That one's coming soon. Is anyone better off? This one is individual customers in Marathon County. So this is not duplicated customers. This is, we count every single person just once. And I've worked with the ADRC. They've been so kind as to kind of give me access to their information, and we've talked through it. Because they serve more than Marathon County, we wanted to make sure that we weren't grouping information that wasn't specific to Marathon. There's a lot of back and forth that goes on behind the scenes just to make sure that we're giving you the most responsible, accurate information that we have available to us. And the idea of this is each of these department buttons are going to have their program layouts, have KPIs for each of those programs. We're going to start with the budget stats and then build out from there. So we have about 50, I want to say, KPIs that I'm hoping to publish as soon as possible. I imagine the next question would be, hey, when are we going to get this? My goal is February 2026. There is a lot of context that we still need to write and shape and build, but that's the very, very aggressive and frankly kind of insane deadline that I've given myself, because I want to get something out there as soon as we can and not wait for everything to be perfect and have more than 4 numbers before we start posting that, having that transparency. So that's my commitment and my passion and how I'm trying to work with the teams and make sure that we can get that to the public as soon as we can. And I think that's it. Any questions?
Open it up for questions from the committee.
Oh, thank you. Sorry.
Supervisor Robinson, please.
So you threw out publishing 50 KPIs and you had identified 240. So walk us through the progression
Sure.
of how we would get
The rest of
fully-
them?
Yeah. Yes.
Sure. So knowing that we have by the budget numbers that we've worked on the last year, I mean, it really is. It's a great question and something that I don't know how many roadblocks might come up as I do that. I'm going to be perfectly frank and transparent. Each of those rows on that spreadsheet, it could be a spreadsheet that somebody's been maintaining. It could be a database in the system that I don't yet have access to. It could not exist. We might not be tracking that. But if that's something that we've identified as important, that's my opportunity to go to the department and say, hey, walk me through how you do this on a daily basis, and let me identify some systems and some tools, and possibly, like the justice system, build you some custom reports that I code for you that now gives you what you need in order for you to get us what we need. So that's a very difficult moving target to look at, but I would like to come out in phases. And I think after we publish the 50 or so budget-related KPIs, I'd like to identify what we already have that's in a place that we can work with. So I'm not necessarily going to go after something that we don't yet track, but if we have something that's already 75% of the way there, I'd like to target those first, because it's going to be not nearly as high of a level of effort in order to publish those. Does that answer your question? I'm happy for a follow-up too.
I would say we tried to pick ones, to Michael's point. You know, I worked with Michael a lot on that, to go through and, first of all, what are the programs, what are following that results-based accountability framework, what are the things that fit into the how much, how well is anyone better off framework, trying to target things that we think we have. And we have some departments are in a much better position than others. I mean, I'll say social services with their system, the EWISAQUIS system, you can pull a lot of things from it. On the far flip side, we thought we had a really good system in the justice system. And as we dug in more, I mean, this is not an exaggeration. How many lines we had various fields that staff would enter? Was it
621, I want to say.
621? And we had case managers who'd use them at time. Yeah, that it wasn't consistent. So we could pull a report, but it wasn't helpful. So my hope is, and it's not going to be any more definite of an answer than what Michael gave you, I want to pick the quick wins, which, you know, again, social services strikes me as one that is perhaps a quicker win because of their database. Some of the stuff within the sheriff's office, there's been some work we've done that Michael's done with Superion to get access and drill in. Done a lot of work on the court side to pull over information out of the Wisconsin Circuit Court Access Program. We needed to get a license, purchase a license. But I think we have a lot of pieces, and we'll start with the budget, and my hope is we can incrementally keep adding to it. I mean, I'll just say the justice system work. If you would have asked me how long it was going to take, and this is primarily a function, I would say 100% a function of my lack of knowledge on the programming side, and quite a lack of understanding of how poor our data system was, I would never have guessed it would have taken that long. But that said, the system now there is not an excuse. If you're a case manager working in our justice system, there's not an excuse to have data entered wrong. I mean, literally on Monday, I get the same report, open it up, and if I see a red box, I mean, Michael has told you need fill in the red box, fill in the yellow box. So not very helpful in terms of timeline, but if we can start in February with the rollout. I've heard from a number of county board members just even this week about when we hold meetings and we talk about programs. I think this will help us. You see it with Meals on Wheels. What is it? Why does it matter? Again, who do we serve? Because it tells the story a lot better than right now. Our manner of kind of educating people on what county government does just isn't there. I would say, I've asked all my colleagues, hey, do you have great stuff on this? And the answer is no. So I do think this is another area where the county is ultimately going to be a leader. I would say Pulse. It's great. It's coming at no additional cost to have Michael do all this work, but she's doing it. And I have no doubt that that the Pulse team, which is, I think it's HSI, is that?
HCI, yes.
HCI, they're going to make this tool available once we build it to other people.
Follow up?
So the follow-up would be, do we have a data standardization protocol in the department? I know I led the DNR's effort to try to deal with a GIS strategic plan, and we found that we had people collecting data in different incremental units that didn't necessarily make sense, and some was stored on individual computers versus the mainframe. Do we have are we moving toward a data standardization protocol for the department so that if a individual leaves, we don't lose the data?
I'd be happy to take it if I may.
Go ahead, please,
Thank you.
Michael, please.
So one of the things that, in my experience, I've found, and I'll give you an example if I may. We've got a program and 3 case managers, and one of them, they all have a different client base, but all 3 together put their data together, and we can actually get an idea of whether the program's working or not. Now, case manager number 1 says, yes, I log, when my client comes in. If they didn't come in, I put it in an Excel spreadsheet. It's readily available. I'd be happy to send it to you. Awesome. Case manager number 2 says, well, I don't really log, when people come in, but I do log when they don't come in. And where do you put that? Well, I put it in a Word document. Okay, that's less helpful, but I can work with you. That's cool. And the 3rd case manager, I say, hey, okay, where do you log things? Well, I don't log who comes in. Now, this is purely hypothetical, if you'll stay with me. I don't log who comes in. In fact, I log the hours that I spend with my clients. And then at the end of the day, I write it on a Post-it, make a calendar collage on my wall. And at the end of the month, I take a picture with my phone and I text it to my manager. It's like, wow, that's supremely unhelpful. Not a real, I'm not giving you an actual example, but the spirit of it is true. So technically, they're all spending time logging data, and it works for whatever system that they individually have. But when I go to them, I say, if the board has a question, I'm not going to be able to answer it because we don't have data standardization. So that's where the data officer comes in and says, hey, this is the tool you're going to use. You're going to log everything the exact same way. One of the things that I did provide for the case managers was a cheat sheet that every time a client comes in, here's what you do for your appointment. Here's the action taken code, whether or not they showed up. There's a timestamp in the database. I have direct access to all the raw data, so I can run my own code and pull exactly what I need. So that is a really, really big passion of mine, because technically we have data, but if it's not in a form that's helpful to you, there's no value in it. And we want people spending their time logging things in a manner that is helpful. And a lot of times we don't have those conversations to be on the same page. This is a very new role and a new skill set. And again, I would really, from a personal and professional standpoint, really like to see more of that data standardization in order to get us what we need.
So follow-up,
Go ahead, please.
what can the county board do to assist in those efforts toward data standardization? And let me also throw out, historically, we've talked about crisis in the jail. Do we go beyond just the county operations, and do we look at North Central in our effort to collect the data, particularly in those cases that may overlap? And do we look beyond our county borders, if you will?
Starting with your first question about what can the county board do, I think the investment of moving in this direction of transparency I mean, I think making the data available publicly, I think is, as Michael said, it's a huge step. But continuing to invest in systems, and they are not inexpensive. I mean, I think we have one supervisor that, well, a chair of a committee has referred to IT as the black hole. And that may be, you know, from a fiscal standpoint, it is expensive, but I'll just tell you the investment made in Workday, for example. We went from, as Michael said, spreadsheets that an individual had and used to track various things, now to a system that, as we get better using it, will be able to continue to enhance what we can pull out of it. Part of it is going to be investigation, like Michael did with, we had a system, excuse me, in our justice system to log data, but it wasn't standard. So Michael took a lot of time to do that. Again, my sense is we have some systems in other departments, the sheriff's office with Superion. We can pull information from the Wisconsin Circuit Court Access Program on the justice system side that, while not perfect, is better. And this is where Michael gets to kind of put the finish nails on things like the roof as opposed to build the house. That framework is there. What can we extract out of it? Similarly, we have a core database that we use for treatment courts. If you look at that March meeting that I referenced for public safety, you can see the reports that she's generated. There are other departments that don't have those data systems because, one, they're smaller. You know, solid waste, we're gonna need to go in and see what data do we have in your system? What are the key performance indicators apart from tonnage, right? But, you know, we did go through all of the departments and try to identify what are those key things for at least the larger programs right now. My thought on what the county board could do is continue to, you know, support that data journey, the culture of looking at data. And the standardization is going to be department by department. I mean, the best way to track something in Kim's department of 3 people is not going to be the same way we track something in the sheriff's office. They're different things, but the idea of, hey, there's a single way we do. Kim doesn't track marriages license one way and David track them another. Like, they're doing them all the same.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just to follow up, and I am the labeler of the data centers, the black hole, because I just feel and hear that whoosh sound every budget. But I would want to make sure that as we're looking at data standardization, we look at where social services, where law enforcement, and where the healthcare might come in to our data collection points, and at least have the dialogues and the discussions when appropriate relative to standardization when possible, so that we can cross-share the data and do a better job of evaluation. And if there's anything the board could do to support that, we need to know that.
And I neglected to answer your second point about other departments. Absolutely, you'll see in the budget, and it's going to be in the departmental rollout that Michael's working on for February. One of the key performance indicators that we use across a number of departments are emergency detentions, which is, again, a function of law enforcement with the crisis assessment and response team, but also North Central Healthcare. So I know Michael's had a couple of meetings with staff from North Central Healthcare and spoken with Jason Hake a little bit about what does their data journey look like. And I particularly like, there's some aspects I think we can learn from North Central on, and I'll give you one example. This morning, in fact, we had a meeting with our treatment court leadership team to talk about treatment courts. And I think one of the things that North Central does well is they drive their budget is driven, I should say, by census in a number of departments, whether it's the nursing home, adult behavioral health hospital. We can do a better job. We do that with the jail to say, hey, how does our out-of-county housing, how is that driven by census? We can do the same thing with the number of people we serve and tying the programs to how much of something did we do, ultimately to the cost. Because right now, that's been a bit of a, if I'm being honest, I think that's an area where we can grow, to say, okay, if you want to expand the size of a program or the number of people that are accessing that program is growing. Met with Chief Barnes this morning, and he talked about the homeless population. You know, when they started the shelter, their projection was 40. They built it for 60, and they have already had 60, I think 68 was their top number. So what is that census and, I guess, client base? If it grows, what does it cost? I think is an area where we can learn from North Central. And we should, there are a lot of things that are cross-departmental. I gave you the example of emergency detentions, but law enforcement, you know, the Wausau Police Department just released their annual report and I took a look at it. They are a huge driver, the primary driver of our jail population. They're the largest municipal police department in the county. So understanding how their data pulls into ours. One of the things Michael's done with the justice system is, again, how do we then compare against other counties? Because it can often feel, and I've said this with the justice system, it often feels like, man, everywhere we look, it's a challenge. Our case clearance rate in Marathon County was the second highest in the state 2 years ago. That's great. That means we are clearing, I want to say it's either 104% or 106%. Means you're closing more cases than are coming in, which is really great when you're trying to respond to the pandemic when we had a case closure rates across the state dropped. So context also of how do we compare to others will be a next, and again, I don't have a team of 40 plus, but yeah.
That's too many
But
people.
I think to your point though, data needs to be helpful. It can't just be information. It's got to be information that is helpful in making a decision. And I think apart from North Central Healthcare and other entities that we work with, how do we compare against other counties is important.
Could I just pick up on that point?
Go ahead.
If we could. So you talked about the comparative analysis between us and other counties. Is there an effort on the part of WCA and others to try to, as we're going through that standardization, to try to standardize it, across counties? I know that's a much more difficult task, but are there discussions and efforts so that we're learning from each other?
There's been high-level discussions, and it's really challenging when you have 72 counties doing it 72 different ways. And just a prime example is budgeting and specifically how things are coded in a budget system. So, and since you have, 72 counties doing it 72 different ways, trying to find that uniformity has really been challenging, but there's been some high-level discussions, but that's where it's stat, because I think in order to get there, it requires resources, just like everything else, and resources are always challenged. Supervisor, go ahead, Michael, please.
And if I may, one of the things that I've been trying to do is reach out to some of my fellow folks in Eau Claire. They built a dashboard that has stats for the jail and talked to Crystal and said, hey, how did you guys build this? How has it been helpful? How can we learn from you? I also am in touch with Rock County's data architect, saying, how are you connecting the different departments of information with systems that don't talk to each other? One of our biggest challenges is data silos. We have all these different systems and all these different departments that don't talk to each other. And so that's what I'm trying to do kind of behind the scenes, is find those common denominators where we can start to put it together and weave that, again, that data web, weird analogy, but essentially you understand where I'm going with that. So being able to connect with people that also share in some of my responsibilities, but also talking to the state. I'll go to the Data Officer Summit and talk to some folks. I've got some nice contacts at the state. Hey, what are you guys working on where we could start to get a head start on that? Like, what in the justice system have you been working towards? And one of them was CORE. Being able to standardize that across all the different counties, and they're trying to roll that out for some of the different justice programs. But I've been, asked me to come speak with Laura Yari at one of their steering committees and to be able to say, hey, here's how we pulled information out of this system. We'd love to be able to share that with other counties and put our heads together and figure out how we can do this better as a state. I think that's a really big, exciting topic and a lot of the folks that are in my new role.
Supervisor Marash, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was the one that requested this presentation, so I just wanted to say thank you for your update, and I appreciate all the networking you've been doing to help develop all of these dashboards and collect our data. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a team effort for sure.
Other questions? Supervisor Drabeck, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just wondering how the AI is now and the chat GTP and stuff like that, how that can work together, how much you use that is all I was wondering.
May I?
Go ahead. Please, Michael.
Thanks for letting me speak so much. Data standardization, it all comes down to that, where if you can standardize the data and have it logged the same way every single time, one of the things that I do when I go into a database and I write some code in SQL or SQL, and I will essentially, if for the Star Trek fans out there, computer, show me all of the people that were admitted into this one program between these two dates with this one case manager. And I write that code, and I'm kind of the in-between of like the tech and the operations. Now, sometimes we find that it doesn't come up and there's really nothing that is valuable about that until we can standardize it. Now, once we standardize that, once we build that foundation, now we can start to have those better conversations about how AI might play a role in the future in the organization, but it's not something that's immediately on my radar, I'll tell you that.
Vice Chair Dickinson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm glad the other question was brought up about comparisons to other counties, because I question whether half of the counties or 2/3 of the counties in the state are going to be doing this. So it makes it very difficult then to have a comparison by creating it. So it's just a comment. And I would also make a comment that before we do anything more, NCHC or solid waste or additional infrastructures or whatever, I think every department needs to be treated equally, which was what was basically initially promised, right? So we need to focus on what the initial goal was, as opposed to kind of stretching beyond, what the position was created for. I think that's the second comment. And third thing is, I was, not in favor of this. I think data is great. I think the problem is what the administrator was alluding to before, and Supervisor Robinson, is that just having data and presenting it is one thing, but what's the use of it? So I'd like to hear a comment about what's the benefit? Like, what are the dashboards being used for? Is it performance reviews for staff? Are you comparing staff? This one's more efficient than the other. Is it somehow trying to lower costs within a department that maybe you need less staff in order to perform the duties? Is it a public relations kind of thing where we're just showing people out there who are the taxpayer, this is what we're doing, with no real presentation other than some charts and a paragraph of information about it? So that's kind of, I love data, but unless you present it, and you are aware of this, unless you present it for some meaningful goal, it just sits on a website and it does nothing.
Sure, no, that's a great comment and great question. So the answer is, well, all of those things. So on the departmental evaluation side, Michael's helped already with, and I think I referenced these, but we had, and within the health department, try to evaluate caseloads across public health nurses. Michael did a data analysis to help their managers better understand caseload weights. Program evaluation, again, an example would be within the justice system. We have data on, well, how many graduates do we have coming out of that have graduated our treatment courts or our pretrial program? How many people are we serving? How well are we doing? Are we having people show up for court? What's our bench warrant rate? And Michael has put together, and they've been presented at a couple of occasions at public safety, just to try then to give that additional context of, well, how are we doing and what is the impact to compare us against? There are a lot of there are a number of counties that have treatment courts, and I'll just give an example. Like the treatment court success rate, I'm going to be close, it's not going to be accurate. I don't have it sitting in front of me, but the state average when they run their data is, well, 52% success rate. Sounds bad. Well, when you compare that against national best practice, that's kind of in line, but when we looked at our data and we're included in the state data report, we're above that. Not substantially, I'd love to tell you 80% of our people are successful, but we're above that. And I think to your point, what is the value of that? If we can compare, and if our rates are falling below best practice, we would ask, hey, what's going on here? And one area that we did that within the justice system is called Case Management Treatment Services, CMTS for short, because we love acronyms. We are a user of CMTS within the county, primarily for treatment court, as is the Department of Corrections. But we share those resources. And we had a target that we were striving for in terms of success rate, and we were far below it. And when we started to look at, well, why is this? Our users are primarily within drug court, and how we measure success matters. And we use it different than, I'm not going to badmouth the Department of Corrections. We use it differently. I would say our use is far more effective than the way that the Department of Corrections uses that resource. But I think to your point, it's a program evaluation. It can be individuals. I much prefer to say, hey, how is the program functioning, and are we hitting our targets? And if not, then what is the intervention? And I think data is important because, the example I've used with department heads is, it's important to know how far away you are from your target. I step on the scale every morning. It's a far different intervention if I'm 2 pounds away or 20. And it can help you kind of assess which way you need to go. I do think the last part, though, of your point is very well taken, that is it simply, and I don't, simply maybe isn't the right way to frame it, is it also a public relations or a public tool to engage the public and inform them of what we do? I think absolutely that's important to help the public, but also the board and staff understand, hey, this is how this program relates to, this is the service that it delivers. This is why that service matters. Similar to the data you got with the Family Keys program, right? Historically, we would have probably reported to you how many people we served. But I think Michael's work has really that idea of how are we measuring success. We have tried to, as I think Chair Robinson referenced, drive that data mantra through all of our departments. Like, well, how do you assess? It's not measuring outputs. Anybody can measure an output, right? Like, how many widgets did I crank out? Do the widgets matter? So one of the things you saw Family Keys, how many people had maintained employment post-program? We measure in our drug court, how many people came in employed, how many people left employed, how many people left or came into the program without independent housing, how many people are leaving with independent housing, and then we also measured we looked at the number of criminal court cases or convictions, I can't remember which, I think it was convictions that the individuals had in the 3 years prior to their enrollment in the program and in the 3 years post-graduation. And the idea being, if we were historically measuring recidivism as a yes/no. Did you ever get convicted of another crime after going through the program? And the data, we're like, geez, that doesn't look like we want to learn more about that. And what we found, similar to what Krista talked about, you might have somebody who, success, that, hey, you're not going to ever be charged with a crime again, not the best measure. Are they substantially better? If I had 15 criminal charges in the 3 years before I got into treatment court, and I had 2 in the 3 years after, we had this very conversation this morning at our treatment leadership meeting. That's a big win. So how do we tell that data and really tell an accurate story as opposed to 50% recidivism sounds bad. Well, let's talk about what that actually means. So I think you laid out all of the areas where I think the answer is it's all of those things. It's just going to take us a while to get there. But I appreciate your point about getting our core departments done first, which is certainly the goal.
If I may, Supervisor Dickinson, you make a really great point. I know you don't know me from Adam, but my formal education is in data science. And if you guys wanted to hire somebody that was just going to throw up vanity metrics, you hired the wrong person. I'm going to say you hired the right person if you want me to go in and really dig in with the departments and say, what are we actually trying to say here? And again, I want to speak frankly and honestly, but I do have to manage those expectations where I have to help shape the way that we handle data as an organization, and I've got to play nicely with the departments. If I come in and I say, hey, I want the most controversial information that you've got right now, they might not want to work with me in the future. So I really do have to have a balancing act. But again, you have my word that it's not just about putting numbers on a page and making it look pretty. I take a lot of pride in what I do, and I'm so glad that I can use my skills to make the county a better place in my role in that. But I'm always happy to talk shop and how we're going about doing this. I want to be transparent, and again, my door is open. So thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Michael? Well, Michael, thank you so very much for all the great work that you're doing, and look forward to some additional information as it becomes available. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
We will go back to then the order on the agenda. Item number 3 was public comment. We didn't have anybody approach the clerk or myself, and so we'll move on to item number 4, approval of the minutes of the July 10th and August 26th meeting minutes. They were in your packet. What's your pleasure? Motion by Supervisor Draybeck, second by Supervisor Robinson. Any discussion on the minutes as presented? Supervisor Mask, please.
Thank you. I would like to have the minutes from the 26th amended to put me excused and not absent.
Okay.
And the reason I'm very sensitive about that word is if a constituent looks at this, they see absent, it's like, I don't care. We had a death in the family, so I was at a funeral.
Yeah.
So it's important to me that the right word be put in.
Yeah.
Thank
All
you.
right, we will have that.
I think it's already been done.
Okay.
I'll verify it.
Okay. Any other discussion on the minutes as presented with the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve with the correction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We'll move on to operational functions required by statute, ordinance, resolution, or policy. Discussion by possible action by the exec. Setting the county board salaries for the 26-28 term. This has to be done by the board before papers are taken out. And so we've got really 2 items that relate to each other. Item number 5A1 and 5A2. And I will turn it over to the administrator. What's that?
Sorry, you're done with salaries. You want me to talk 5A2?
Oh, we'll start with salaries. I mean, the setting of the salaries, and I think I understand our policy is that a 3% automatic increase happens in the next budget if the board does not take action to do something different. So as we sit here today, if we want that to continue, we don't have to take any action, and a 3% increase would happen to the supervisor's salaries in April when they take the office for next year. If you want something different, then the recommendation would be go to the full board as a different recommendation. So that's the first item on the setting of the salaries for the 2026-2028 term. So I open it up for discussion. Vice Chair Dickinson, please.
Regarding salaries, I see no reason to make a change.
Okay. Other discussion? Supervisor Marash, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In my opinion, I believe we should not do a 3% increase based on our current budget constraints.
Okay. Other discussion? Supervisor Robinson, please.
I support the salary increase. What happens is the county board is always slow to increase its salaries over time, and if you look at it historically, we've probably not kept pace with inflation. I think in light of the upcoming discussion, there's a mechanism for paying for it through ending the subsidy for the internet. So I would support going ahead with the increase. And that affects the future board, not necessarily us. But I think there is a significant time commitment for the board, and I think that nobody's in it for the money, but I think it certainly helps cover some of the costs that are not covered.
Okay. So any other discussion? So with a lack of action, do we have to take a resolution to the full board recognizing the 3% increase? I'm looking to Corp Counsel for that.
I'm looking to our rule.
Okay. Supervisor Marash, you had another comment?
No, sorry, I'll unraise my hand.
Thank you.
Okay, I have it.
Okay.
So,
please.
here's what our rule says. The procedure for setting salaries shall be as follows. A vote will be taken to set supervisor and board salaries in November of odd-numbered years for the next succeeding 2-year term. So I read that as a vote by the county board. By rule, and unless modified as set forth below, the initial resolution before the board will provide for a 3% annual increase in salary to county board members and the chairperson to be effective the first pay period, et cetera. Then any recommended modifications to the initial resolution under sub 2 will be developed and proposed to the county board by the Human Resources, Finance, and Property Committee. So I read that to mean that HR, Finance, and Property would recommend any changes to the resolution. If there are no changes recommended, this 3% annual increase is the resolution that goes before the board in November. If there are recommended changes, then that recommended, those recommended changes are the changes that are forwarded to the board, but the board ultimately makes the decision in November.
Okay, all right. Well, I wanted to have a little bit of context around the administrators, the next item on the agenda, because I wanted to have discussion to give guidance to the administrator as he's building the 2026 budget. Again, so if it's, I'll leave it up to the chair of HR Finance to put it on the agenda for discussion for, at some point, to be brought to the board in November. Right, Supervisor Robinson?
Just then for clarity, then if HR Finance and Property concurs with the 3%, is the resolution then come from executive committee for only if we deviate, does something need to go to the board?
I read this to say that because sub 1 specifically says a vote will be taken to set supervisor and board officer salaries in November, I think the county board has to take that vote. And I think it comes from HR Finance either way. If HR Finance doesn't make recommendations for changes, then it comes with the 3% baked in. If it does, then it comes with whatever recommendations the committee makes.
Okay. All right, so we'll have HR Finance take that up at a future meeting and bring forth its recommendation one way or the other to forward to the full board for its November discussion. Then I don't think there was any official action needed to be taken on item 5A1, but we'll move on to 5A2, a discussion on the resolution R17-14 regarding internet reimbursement for supervisors. And I turn it over to Administrator Leonard, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as was alluded to, we're deep in budget development. And through that process, excuse me, through that process, Deputy Administrators Holman and Pesh, number of finance staff, we sit in a room and we go through every department's budget, and that includes Kim. And Kim has the great honor of being the department from which the county board, one of her budgets is the county board budget. We have been going line by line through and taking a look at areas, and this is one that I think it is an artifact of Resolution 17-14, but annually within the county board budget, there's an allocation for, I believe it's $14,000 for reimbursement to be available for supervisors should they request it for internet service. And again, I'll say that I work for you, not the other way around. I'll do whatever you direct me to. If this were a department, I can tell you there aren't any departments that I'm aware of that have this. In fact, I reached out and confirmed with the social services director when we went through their budget, and specifically that's a department where we do have at least a subset of their staff that are fully remote. And even for those staff, we don't have a reimbursement. But there was a resolution, R17-14, that when we made, this was before I served in administration, but we made the transition, as I read this, from providing packet materials in paper to doing it electronically with the use of iPads, and that there was a recommendation from a task force to have a reimbursement for the cost of that subscription to internet services of $30. So that was 2014. I know a lot of things have changed since 2014. As we balance the budget, if this were a department, I would cut it. I'll just be very direct with you. But again, I work for you, not the other way around. It's been interpreted that essentially we continue that budgeting practice. I don't read the resolution to say that it has to, but I really would appreciate some guidance on what you want in the county board budget here in this regard.
Well, I'll weigh in a little bit. I think, the way technology's advanced and the availability of everybody having an iPhone or an Android phone and having access to a hotspot and data that way, I believe that if we can show that the county board's doing its part by eliminating potentially that $30 reimbursement. It's not a lot, but it is still $14,000 in the budget. And so if we're going to move forward with a 3%, this is a way to pay for that 3% increase without an increase to the taxpayers by eliminating the $30 reimbursement. But that's my thought. Supervisor, Vice Chair Dickinson.
So we budget 14,000. How many people actually take it? Because some people turn it down. So what is the actual cost?
This term, it's approximately half of the board members who take it. It varies. I looked back and it has varied term over term.
Okay. So 14,000 is, although budgeted, is not really accurate in what the actual costs are. It's
Well,
fair
and
to
we
say.
have a new board.
But it's fair to say.
Yeah, a new board starting,
Right.
so who
Sure.
knows?
That's right.
Right.
Yeah. So overall, it's probably been safe. It's not been hitting budget over the course of its.
Yeah, I think last year we looked and it was it 30 to,
Right, last term, 22 to 24, it was 30 people, and it's gone down. I think we had a discussion about this a couple years ago, and my guess is some people just didn't turn in their request as a result of that, so it's not as much this term.
So in addition to that, I do have because I have a couple thoughts here. You mentioned, departments don't have this. Are there cell phone stipends and reimbursements? Are there county-provided cell phones and such?
That's a great point. We're actually in the process of updating trying to get a consistent policy across departments. That has been an area where departments have, under our rules, county board ordinance, the ordinances, department heads are the procurement officers for their departments. We are trying to enhance consistency, but we do have work-issued cell phones for a number of employees. For law enforcement is a big user of work-issued cell phones. We're trying to develop some clear criteria for that, but short answer, yes. We also have some departments that have stipends, but my plan actually is to move to eliminate the stipend, and either it's a work-issued cell phone if your work actually requires it, because there are, first of all, there's the FirstNet system for government is available that the cost it's a reasonably good value, but also public records is a big part of what we do now as opposed to back perhaps in similar time, 2014. We get a lot more requests for public records when those things can include things like text messages, which would be on those phones. But I hope to do that soon, but that has also taken longer. But short answer, yes, we have work-issued phones and some departments currently have stipends.
So stipends for cell phones, is that your goal for this budget to eliminate those? So that if we're all going to be consistent, we're all consistent?
Yeah, we have already eliminated and we're decreasing some of the work-issued cell phones. The stipends, we haven't cut out yet, but my goal is I want to have it done by the end of the year, for sure.
Then the other comment I would make, if we move forward with a 3%, the average board member actually is going to be a negative next year, one who would have taken the internet, because you're going to be losing, it's a 6%, like the $6,000 salary, you get a 3%, that's your 360, but you're going to be eliminating the other 360. So you're getting 180, excuse me. You'd be getting 3% of 6,000 is 180, but you're going to be losing your 360. So actually next year, the salary is a negative 180. Now, if we're going to be consistent, I don't be consistent, but let's just be honest about what we're stating, especially when we talk about, yes, you can have a cell phone. We have cell phones. Yes, we have internet. Yes, we have hotspots. And given that we're allowed to be on WebEx, and we've seen issues with people with WebEx already, where people are going to be online in meetings, it seems a little bit kind of counter the ability to do that you wouldn't give the stipend. So while I understand on one side, this is what the departments are and what's happening with employees, we're not employees. Thank you. So I would not be in favor.
Supervisor Marash, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am in favor of eliminating this. Thank you.
Supervisor Mask?
I agree with Supervisor Dickinson with his points. Internet, we're required to have it to do this job, whether we do it from home or we do it from here. And the rates are not going down for internet. Mine keep going up. And probably if I didn't have to have it for the county board, I would eliminate it completely. But since it's required for us to have it, I think that Supervisor Dickinson's comments are quite appropriate, and I'm in favor of keeping it.
Other discussion? Supervisor Robinson?
And I think we can take Supervisor Dickinson's concerns into account when we look at the salary at the HR Finance Committee, and it maybe a way around that would be to front-end load the first year with basically the offsetting the cut in that allowance. I haven't taken it this year, so it wouldn't affect me. I do also want to just on the record say that in addition to the internet, there are significant costs because we used to publish all the material and send it out. And I know a good number of us print out material. None of that is is covered, but that it comes with the job. I would support rescinding it, but would also commit to, when we look at the issue of the salary at the Human Resources, Finance, and Property Committee, look at that offsetting, see if we could make an adjustment in that base rate. So I would move that we rescind the ordinance calling for the stipend for internet services.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to rescind Resolution 17-14 for regarding the internet reimbursement for supervisors. Any other discussion? Vice Chair Dickinson, please.
I appreciate Supervisor Robinson's comments about HR Finance, but there's no guarantee that HR Finance is going to follow through. I mean, although you may want it, the other members may not. So it does put us in quite a predicament on this particular vote, going yea or nay. Thank you.
If I, and I'll defer to Mike on, I was simply, and please, again, I was asking for guidance. It's immaterial. I'm not going to balance the budget on $14,000 or $6 or whatever the number actually is. I don't think you need to rescind an ordinance. I'll let Mike speak to it. I was asking for guidance in how to build the budget. I think my read of the resolution isn't that it binds, that it requires rescission, but that I requested of the chair just to get some guidance on how to build the 2026 budget. But Mike, certainly, sorry to put you on the spot here.
No, I was having the same thought. Rescinding an ordinance would be something that the county board could do, and only the county board. However, providing guidance to the administrator on how to build his budget, that is something that committees have been doing and can do. And then ultimately, the decision on whether something is included in the budget goes to the full county board. So if the motion is to direct the administrator to not include that $30 stipend in the budget, I think that's something the committee can do. If you're moving to rescind the ordinance, I think then you have to send that to the full board.
Okay. Vice Chair Dickinson, please.
So doesn't that put us in a predicament where you're making a recommendation for the budget, but you still have an ordinance that exists? How can the budget go against the ordinance? Wouldn't you have to do both?
But I think that's what the administrator is, his read is that isn't binding on future budgets.
Yeah, I apologize if I misspoke.
So he's saying that
It
the
was only for the
resolution,
2014.
that
is what you're suggesting.
17-14 doesn't bind the 2026. It's just, again, policy, we continue to follow it.
I don't believe there's an ordinance on the
There's just the resolution.
the stipend. It was just a resolution in 2014. The ordinance is with respect to the board salaries that you have a rule, I believe.
Right.
I just have one other
Go ahead,
comment, if I
please.
would, and then I'll be done. Not to carry on. But, I made some comments in ERC last week, and I guess I kind of make those as well here. We're talking about $14,000 max, $6,000, $8,000. And oftentimes, we kind of have this tunnel vision focus on that when our budget is over $200 million. This is where I do get a little bit kind of grinded by it, that we don't pay the same amount of attention to significant costs of positions or projects or rolling grants over without coming back to the board for a vote on them, or insert some cost here. But the due diligence in the budget seems to me that, and in the past, trying to just grind out a 0.5% or 1% cut of some departments was met with a lot of vitriol, I think is kind of interesting. And so I'm just making that comment, but however we want to move forward. Thank you.
Other discussion? Supervisor Draybeck, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When I first got on the board, I had to use my phone as a hotspot to download the packets and stuff like that. And it never really, I mean, there was no way I could use it for WebEx or anything. I mean, I could use it just to get the packets is all I could. Now we have Starlink, I can do pretty much whatever I want, but it's significantly more. It's like 120 a month. And so that's just a comment that it is fairly costly for that, so.
Okay, what is it? There's a motion on the floor, made and seconded to rescind Resolution 17-14. Supervisor Robinson, please.
In light of the discussion and the uncertainty and the concerns that the vice chair raised, and I know it doesn't give the administrator the direction that he asked for, but I think we're, in the context of the budget going forward, we're probably dealing with the same amount of money, whether we rescind it or not. So I would withdraw my motion with the understanding that we would bring the whole discussion of the stipend in when we have the discussion on the salary. So it may require, the HR Finance Committee could meet before the next executive committee, make a determination on that, and then we could go forward. But from a perspective of impacting the budget, it's inconsequential, potentially. And then we could address the concerns and alleviate the concerns that Vice Chair Dickinson has.
I'll ask Corp Counsel, as our parliamentarian, is it appropriate to have a motion be rescinded at this point?
You haven't voted on it, so I think that's fine.
Okay, is the second good with withdrawal?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, then we'll have those discussions at HR Finance in totality of the salaries along with the stipend reimbursement. Well, moving on to item number 3, discussion regarding the 2026 annual budget development and policy recommendations from the committees. Any discussion? Supervisor Robinson, please.
Could I ask the administrator to give that high-level discussion where we are relative to staffing, because that seems to be underlying concern, and
Sure.
you've given the highlights at various
Yeah,
committees.
I apologize. You probably have all gotten this already, because I've said it at a number of standing committees, but we are well through the budget. We've had our first meetings with all departments. Not every department will require multiple budget meetings, some will. But one of the key features that we're working through with staff is going to be budgeting. I'm holding open vacant positions, and that is going to be kind of the mantra has been one of shared sacrifice. And for some departments, those vacant positions where I've made the judgment that I'm not going to fund those positions. It can be a significant hardship, and I appreciate their tolerance of that approach. For example, I've used before as the Register of Deeds. They have a vacant position in an office of 4, so holding that position open and not funding it in 26 is a significant challenge, and the Register of Deeds is being a very good sport about it, and we're working to identify opportunities for staff sharing and efficiency, but that idea of shared sacrifices across all of the departments. So we still have the sheriff's office to iron out and what that ultimately looks like, but in terms of budgeting for attrition and or directly holding and unfunding certain specific positions, it would not surprise me. I expect that to be in the area of about 15 positions across the county equivalent, whether it's attrition or specific hold opens. It's going to need to be a strategy that we use to balance that budget. That's not entirely unusual. We've budgeted for attrition in a couple of areas before, generally speaking, but this is going to be a much broader application, and I think all of the department heads understand the need to do that because of the challenges we've had with workforce retention and recruiting, that it's absolutely critical from, I think, our shared perspective to implement the wage study and the new money we're getting through net new construction. Directly net new construction is $837,000, and our costs to continue far outpace that. To the comments made before about internet service and the significant increases you're seeing there, we're seeing inflationary costs as every business and every individual, all of your employees are individuals first. They're having the same pressures, so it really is shared sacrifice to this point, and we will balance the budget. We will propose a balanced budget that incorporates the direction we've gotten to this point, which the new programs that have been proposed or new funding that's been requested is the minimum revenue guarantee program at the airport, the funding for emergency shelter in partnership with the city of Wausau for 2026, as well as kind of some modifications that HR Finance approved that will go to the full board in the budget for a couple of, we had a reclassification or expansion, I should say, within the Veteran Service Office of a .75 position to a 1.0, and then a couple other of reclassifications. Defunding one position within the Health Department to fund work related to homelessness was another initiative. So across the board, departments, again, I can't say enough about your department head leadership you have. They do a very strong job, but we are going line by line through that budget.
Okay, questions? All right, we will move on to education presentations and committee discussion. A discussion on the draft Marathon County Comprehensive Plan, and we have with us the CPZ Director, Lori Miskimmons, and also individual from CPZ, Jeff Pritchard, with us, joining us today. So I will turn it over to Ms. Kimmons. Lori, please.
Thank you, Chair Gibbs. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you just fine, thank you.
Okay. Okay, I won't take too much of the committee's time today because I'm mostly here to give homework for next month. So I'm going to share, Kim, if it's okay, I am going to share my screen. I think.
Lori, I don't think we have any way for you to do that.
Oh, okay.
Let me try. Let me see if this works.
She's going to try 1 second. I don't believe we have. We don't
Okay,
have
well, it's
that opportunity.
in your, okay, that's okay. If it's not working, that's fine. It does say it's sharing on my end. I'm not sure, but that's fine. Okay, okay. So in your packet, there is a one page. It is a link to the comprehensive plan page on our webpage. And there we have posted working drafts of chapters 2 through 13 of the comprehensive plan. And I do say working drafts because they are still, there's a lot of formatting and graphics and things we're still developing. We still have a handful of data or background gaps or holes that we're trying to fill in. But what we have spent a lot of time doing in each chapter is trying to go through and get a good draft of what we see the issues and the goals and the objectives. So we have spent some time, we've taken each of these chapters through committee. We've talked to you all about each chapter once and have tried to get that draft together in terms of the issues, the goals, and the objectives. And those are important because, as you know, those goals and objectives are what you end up identifying for priorities to take into your next strategic plan. So we wanted to make sure those were in a really good place. There is a lot of other background and data that we've gone through and updated, but I'll just emphasize again the thing that we're going to be asking everyone to especially take a look at between now and the October meeting are those goals and objective statements and the issue statements that we have crafted. And one thing I will do is I can consolidate each of those from chapters 3 through 12 because chapters 2 and 13 don't have goals and objectives, but chapters 3 through 12 have goals and objectives and issue statements, and I can consolidate that into one document that I will share with the executive committee. So it's in one PDF for you to look at as well. But as as you have time available, please do take a look at the background sections of all the chapters as well, and let me know or get comments to us, bring those to us about other questions or data gaps you see in those chapters. A couple of things I'll highlight specific to chapters of things we've updated or changed since we last talked with you all. Chapter 3, we have not talked to you all about that. We did talk with Health and Human Services last week about that chapter. So it is a very large chapter. There's a lot of different programs and background data that had to be brought together for that chapter. And we brought in a lot of new pulse data into that chapter as well, and developed a handful of issue statements, goals, and objectives. And I know last week at Health and Human Services, there was one issue statement brought up regarding, or a request to add an issue statement related to just continuing to sort of monitor and assess the impacts and the response to possible forthcoming changes in the income maintenance and Medicaid program. So we did add that issue statement since last week as well. We tried to craft something there. In the community character chapter, we have added more about the homelessness effort. So we've tried to round that out a little bit better since we last talked with you all. In chapter 10, there was a request that we definitely work in something related to the CWA Service Development Fund. So we did decide to put that in chapter 10 is where we put that in there. In chapter 12, we also talked about there was a request to round out a little bit more about the intergovernmental coordination as it relates to state and federal funds when those funds are being used in our county. So we did try and add a little bit more in that chapter as well to address that comment. The other thing I'll say about the objectives as a whole, we did really try and go through and evaluate them and look at them in terms of the county's role. So I know in the past, we have had some objectives that use the word, for example, ensure, and tried to determine like if it was the county's role alone to ensure that particular, whatever that objective might be, or if it might be that they play more of a role in supporting or promoting and things like that. So we did try and give some thought to those in all the objectives in chapters 3 through 12. In some cases, we may have hit the mark. In some cases, we may have missed the mark. That's why we're asking you all to really look that over and bring that feedback to us in October. I think that's all I wanted to put out there for now. Again, I'll put one consolidated document that I'll send to you all with all the goals and objectives and issue statements in chapters 3 through 12, so you can look at it as one PDF. And the ask would be to review that in time for the October meeting.
Okay, questions by the committee? Jeff, you have anything to add? Okay, any questions by the committee? Again, your homework assignment is to review chapters 12 through 13 and also the goals and objectives, and that will be coming out in additional communications from the CPC department, and have comments and prepared to discuss those at the next meeting, October Executive Committee meeting. Anything else? All right. Thank you, Lori. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
We will move on to the next item on the agenda, and I asked the clerk to include this. I know last month we had the preliminary draft, the draft of the updated administrator's work plan. And so I wanted to bring it back for everybody. If there was any questions now that you've had a time to review it, because there wasn't a lot of time in prior months to review, because it's such a short document. There's only a few things the administrator is working on. So I wanted to have the opportunity for the executive committee to comment on any of the progress and the completion of some of those items on the work plan. Any comments, any discussion? All right. Well, I do want to commend and thank the administrator for all the work. Again, the list that we have provided with him is endless, and normal days of operation is quite a demand on the administrator's time, and thank him for all of the efforts and all of the progress that he has made on those projects that were there. And Administrator Leonard, I'll turn it over to him.
Well, I appreciate the kind words, but I would be remiss then if I didn't say, I certainly don't do those things on my own. The vast majority of those things, and it's all a credit to the team. We have made a lot of progress, but I haven't updated the document since it was last before you. I will continue to make those updates, and if you have any questions or concerns on any project, don't ever hesitate to reach out directly to me, and I can get you the information you're looking for.
All right. Anything else? Committee members are asked to bring ideas for future discussion. We do have several things that we'll be taking up in the future, and the comp plan being the one, and the goals and objectives in chapters 3 through 13. And next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, October 21st at 3 p.m. Anything else? And I would like to express, because our next meeting is going to be after the Corp Council's, I don't want to say retirement, but because I think he's a little too young to be retiring at this point. But his next chapter in his life, and want to thank him for everything that he has provided to the county in his service. It has been so great to work with him on this committee, and ultimately with the board, and his professionalism has not been unnoticed by myself, and I think that's a statement that is echoed by a lot of the board members. So, Michael, thank you for your service, and thank you and the best wishes in your next chapter of your life, and much appreciation for everything that you've done. Okay, with that, again, we are down to item number 7. What is your pleasure? Motion by Supervisor Mast, second by Supervisor Robinson to adjourn. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?